All right, everyone, get ready for today's deep dive.
Oh, this is a good one.
We're going deep into the world of SDLCs.
SDLCs.
The blueprints for how software is built.
Yeah.
And this is important stuff.
Absolutely.
Whether you write code every day or just can't live without your favorite apps.
Right. It impacts everybody.
It really does.
Yeah.
Because it's the difference between a seamless digital experience or a whole lot of frustration.
Yeah. I mean, think about all those apps that just never seem to work right.
Oh, tell me about it.
They're probably using the wrong SDLC.
Exactly. And we're going to explore a whole lineup of SDLC models today.
Oh, we got a lot to cover.
We've got Agile, Scrum, DevOps,
Waterfall,
Spiral,
yeah,
Incremental, even RAD.
Each one with a completely different approach.
Totally. And our mission today...
to figure out why a company picks one model over another.
Exactly. It's like choosing the right tool for the job.
Exactly.
Except the tool is a whole development philosophy.
Oh, yeah. You can't just swap these out easily.
No way. Think about the difference between how Spotify builds its app.
Oh, good example.
Versus how NASA builds its rocket guidance software.
I mean, talk about different needs.
Wholly different needs.
By state.
Extremely high stakes.
Yeah.
All right, let's start with Agile.
Okay.
Seems like everyone's talking about Agile these days.
It's definitely a popular one.
So what's at the heart of Agile?
Well, it's really all about adaptability.
Adaptability.
Constant feedback and moving quickly.
So Agile is for companies that really want to stay nimble.
Yes.
And embrace change. And get new features out the door fast.
Exactly. You have to keep up with the fast pace of the tech world.
It's like a race.
It really is.
So Agile isn't about sticking to a rigid plan.
Not at all.
It's more about evolving as you go.
Yeah, it's constantly evolving, constantly improving.
So Agile teams, they work in short cycles.
That's right, short cycles.
They're always gathering feedback. And they're constantly iterating on their product.
And they're not afraid to make changes based on that feedback.
Okay, so picture this. You're building something with Legos.
I love Legos.
But instead of following a set of instructions,
right,
you're constantly tweaking and adding on.
Based on what looks best.
Exactly.
Maybe you're getting feedback along the way.
Like from a friend.
Or even just from how the creation is coming together.
A perfect example of this Agile philosophy is Spotify.
Oh, Spotify's great.
They really live and breathe Agile.
Yeah, they've even structured their teams around it.
Their teams are called squads.
Right, and each squad is responsible for a specific feature or area of the app.
And they work autonomously.
Yeah, releasing updates all the time.
That's why you see new features, bug fixes, and even experimental elements
popping up on Spotify all the time.
It's almost like they're running a bunch of mini startups.
It really is.
But all within the larger company.
Yeah, each with its own little agile engine.
And this approach isn't just limited to Spotify.
Nope, lots of companies are doing it.
We see Agile being used by tons of SaaS companies.
Like Salesforce.
Atlassian and mobile app developers too.
Because in those spaces, frequent updates are essential.
You've got to keep up.
Yeah, you have to.
Now, Scrum.
Okay, Scrum.
I always hear that term used alongside Agile.
You do, and for good reason.
So is it like a supercharged version of Agile or what?
Well, think of Scrum as Agile with a little more structure.
Okay, a little more structure.
It still embraces flexibility.
And customer feedback.
But it introduces a framework for managing the work.
A framework.
Yeah, imagine breaking down a marathon into a series of sprints.
Okay.
That's the core idea behind Scrum.
Short bursts.
Exactly. They're called sprints.
Sprints.
Usually lasting 2 to 4 weeks.
So it's less about free-flowing creativity.
Yeah, less free-flowing.
And more about having some guardrails.
Exactly.
To keep the project on track.
Yeah, so Scrum teams are constantly communicating.
Collaborating.
And doing frequent reviews.
To make sure everyone's on the same page.
Working towards the same goal.
And, you know, companies like Amazon.
Huge companies like
Microsoft, even.
Giants in the tech world.
They've adopted Scrum.
They have?
I can only imagine the chaos.
Oh, it would be chaos.
Of trying to manage a huge software project.
Thousands of developers.
With hundreds or even thousands of developers.
Without some kind of structure.
Exactly. So how does Scrum actually work in those huge, complex environments?
Well, it's all about breaking down those massive projects.
Break it down?
Into manageable chunks.
Manageable chunks.
Yeah, think about Amazon's product catalog.
Massive.
From books to electronics to their cloud services.
It's everything.
Each category might have multiple teams.
Working on different aspects.
And each team can utilize Scrum.
To stay organized.
And aligned with the overall roadmap.
That makes sense.
So Scrum isn't just for software development.
It's not.
Nope.
What else is it for?
It's a project management philosophy that can be applied to almost anything.
Wow.
It helps keep things from spiraling out of control.
Even within a company as big as Amazon.
Exactly, and that's why large enterprises are adopting it.
They need that structure and that agility.
It's a perfect blend.
Okay, next up, DevOps.
DevOps, speed.
That's what I think of when I hear DevOps.
It's all about speed.
Software development on warp drive.
You're not wrong.
Is that accurate?
Yeah, DevOps is all about building, testing, and releasing software.
At an incredibly rapid pace.
Extremely rapid pace.
So goal is to create a seamless pipeline.
From the developer's keyboard to the user's device.
With as little friction and downtime as possible.
You want it to be smooth.
So it's about breaking down those traditional silos.
The silos between development and operations.
To make the whole process more like a well-oiled machine.
Exactly, and this is where automation comes in.
Automation.
DevOps relies heavily on automation.
Okay, so imagine tools that automatically test new code, integrate it, and even deploy it.
With minimal human intervention. That's the power of DevOps.
Okay, mind blown, but can you give me a real-world example of a company?
That's really mastered this.
Yes.
Think Netflix. They're constantly updating their platform.
New features,
Bug fixes.
performance improvements,
All while millions of users are streaming.
and they can't afford any downtime.
Yeah, not at all.
Glitches or delays,
Not even for a second.
their ability to push out updates seamlessly
Sometimes multiple times a day.
is a testament to their DevOps practices.
They're really good at it.
It's like they've built a software factory.
With robots doing most of the work.
That's wild.
And the speed and reliability.
This is why DevOps is so critical for companies.
With massive infrastructure.
Like Netflix.
Etsy, LinkedIn, companies where downtime is a financial nightmare.
You can't afford it.
Nope.
Okay, I need a moment to process all of this.
It's a lot to take in.
We've only scratched the surface here.
There's so much more to explore.
There's a whole world of SDLCs waiting out there.
We can dive into some more in our next segment.
We'll be back.
Stay tuned.
We'll be right back. All right, welcome back.
Back for more.
We've covered Agile, Scrum, DevOps.
All about speed and flexibility.
Those models are always evolving.
They really are.
But what about those projects where you
Yeah.
need a more predictable, more structured approach?
Right, where move fast and break things
Yeah,
isn't the best motto.
exactly. Not the
Well,
best
we don't have
motto.
that we know.
That's where models like Waterfall come into play.
Waterfall, one of the classics, that's known for its linear, sequential approach.
Waterfall, it's like that image of water cascading down
I was just thinking that.
from one level to the next
Each step leads to the next.
in a very specific order.
Very specific.
So in Waterfall,
You start by gathering all the requirements
all requirements.
up front.
Okay.
Think of it like creating a detailed blueprint
A blueprint.
before you even lay the first brick.
Okay, I like that.
Then you move through distinct phases. Design, development, testing, deployment.
Each phase depends on the completion of the one before it.
That's right.
So if Agile is like building with Legos on the fly,
Okay, I can see where you're going with this.
Waterfall's like constructing a skyscraper.
You need a solid plan.
You can't just change the design halfway through.
Not without some major consequences.
That's a great way to think about it.
And this emphasis on planning and documentation.
Yeah.
This makes Waterfall ideal for certain projects.
Projects where predictability and risk mitigation are super important.
Absolutely.
So we see Waterfall being used in government projects,
Often.
aerospace,
Definitely.
maybe even large-scale enterprise systems.
For sure.
Think about NASA launching a rocket into space.
Oh yeah, good example.
There's no room for error.
You need everything to be perfect.
Every single component
Tested and
is
verified.
absolute certainty.
Waterfall provides that level of control.
And that documentation
And make sure everything's done right.
the first time.
The first time.
I'm starting to see the appeal.
It has its place.
But wouldn't this rigid structure
Yeah.
make it difficult to adapt
It can.
to changing needs or unexpected challenges?
That's one of the main criticisms of Waterfall.
So what if you discover a flaw late in the game?
It can be costly to make changes.
And time-consuming.
You might have to revisit earlier stages.
It's like trying to redirect a waterfall.
Once it's already flowing.
Not easy.
Not at all.
So it's all about choosing the right model,
For the right project.
weighing the need for control.
Versus the potential for change.
Okay, let's shift gears to another interesting model.
Okay, which one?
The spiral model.
The spiral model.
If Waterfall is about minimizing risk through planning,
Right.
the spiral model takes it a step further.
It does.
Okay, spiral model. Sounds kind of mysterious.
It's all about iteration.
What's the core idea?
Imagine climbing a mountain.
Okay.
You don't just charge straight up.
No, you take your time.
You carefully plan each step.
Assess the terrain.
Check your gear.
Make adjustments along the way.
That's the essence of the spiral model.
Okay.
It's iterative cycles.
Of what?
Planning, risk analysis, prototyping.
Evaluation. So you're constantly circling back. Refining the plan.
Refining the product.
Based on new information and feedback.
That's right.
Each loop of the spiral represents a phase.
Starting with a basic prototype.
And then
adding more features.
With each iteration.
It sounds like a very deliberate approach.
It is.
Almost like you're tiptoeing.
Through the development process.
And that's why it's often used in certain industries.
Industries with high consequences for failure.
Like healthcare.
Yes.
Defense. Systems.
Where even a small error can be catastrophic.
Yeah, okay. Let's say a medical device company is developing a heart monitor.
Okay, good example.
How would they use the spiral model?
To mitigate risks.
Yeah.
They might start by building a basic prototype.
Focusing on core functionality.
Like measuring heart rate and rhythm. Then they test that prototype.
Rigorously.
In a lab.
And in real-world scenarios.
With patience.
You need to see how it performs in the real world.
So it's not just about technical testing.
No.
It's about getting feedback from users.
And medical professionals.
To uncover potential issues early on.
Exactly.
And that feedback is then used to refine the design.
Address any risks.
Maybe even add new features.
Based on user needs.
Then they'd build a more advanced prototype.
Incorporate those changes.
And the cycle repeats.
Plan, analyze, prototype, evaluate, repeat.
So each loop of the spiral is like a mini waterfall project.
You could say that.
But with a focus on risk management.
And feedback.
The spiral model takes the best of Waterfall.
The structure, the documentation.
But adds adaptability.
And risk mitigation.
To make it suitable for complex projects.
High-stakes projects.
This is fascinating.
It is.
Each model is a different way of approaching the same challenge.
How to build software effectively.
You mentioned earlier that Scrum can be applied to almost any complex project.
That's right.
Not just software development.
Not just software.
Can you give us a concrete example?
Sure. Imagine a marketing team planning a product launch.
Okay.
Lots of moving parts there.
Advertising campaigns.
Social media strategies.
Events. Press releases.
It can be overwhelming.
They could utilize Scrum.
They could.
To break down that project into smaller sprints.
Each focused on a specific set of deliverables.
So instead of juggling everything at once, they're tackling things in a focused, iterative way.
Exactly. They could have a sprint for messaging.
Another sprint for visual assets.
So on.
They'd have daily meetings.
To discuss progress.
Identify roadblocks.
Make adjustments as needed.
At the end of each sprint.
They'd review what worked.
What didn't work.
And use that feedback for the next sprint.
So the principles of Scrum.
Collaboration, communication, iteration.
Can be applied to any field
where you need to manage complex projects
and adapt to changing circumstances.
That's right.
I'm officially a Scrum convert.
I can see why.
But we have one more SDLC model to explore.
We do.
The incremental model.
Right, incremental.
How does this one fit into our toolkit?
The incremental model is all about building and delivering software.
In stages.
Like constructing a building one floor at a time.
Okay.
You start with a core set of features.
A minimum viable product.
And then gradually add more functionality.
With each release.
So you're starting with a basic foundation.
And building upon it incrementally.
Rather than trying to create everything at once.
Can you give me a real-world example?
Sure. Think Dropbox.
Dropbox, okay.
They started with a simple file sharing service.
Easy to use.
Reliable. And then,
over time, they added features,
file syncing,
collaboration tools,
integrations with other apps,
all based on user feedback
and market demands.
They didn't try to build everything at once.
They focused on a solid core product.
And then iterated from there.
So it's a constant evolution.
Building upon success.
This incremental approach. It's popular with web and SaaS companies.
Where continuous development is the norm.
They can release new features incrementally.
Rather than waiting for a massive release.
This allows them to stay agile.
Respond to user needs quickly.
Keep their product fresh and competitive.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
Agile, DevOps, Waterfall, Spiral.
Even incremental.
It's amazing to see how each model
offers a different perspective
on the art and science of software development.
There's no one-size-fits-all solution.
The key is to understand the strengths and weaknesses.
And choose the approach that aligns with your needs.
And then goals.
That's right.
And choosing the right model is just the first step.
It's a much larger journey.
There's implementation, adaptation,
and evolution
within a real-world environment.
That's where the real magic happens.
But before we delve into those complexities,
we have one final model.
One more.
RA, Rapid Application Development.
The speedster of the SDLC world.
It might just surprise you.
Stay tuned. All right, welcome back.
We're in the home stretch now.
We've journeyed through this whole landscape of SDLCs.
Agile sprints, waterfall planning, we've seen it all.
We've seen how companies like Spotify and Netflix,
They really use these models to build amazing stuff.
they really do.
It's impressive.
But let's tackle the million-dollar question.
Okay, hit me with it.
How do you actually choose the right SDLC?
The age-old question.
It's like standing in front of a buffet
So many options.
with all these delicious options, but you can only pick one plate.
You gotta make some tough choices.
So choosing an SDLC, it's not about following trends
No.
or picking a model just because it sounds cool.
It's gotta be a strategic decision.
It's about finding the approach that aligns with your project.
Your team, even your company culture.
So there's no magic formula,
No magic formula, I wish.
no handy flowchart.
If only it were that simple.
But there are key factors to consider.
Oh yeah, for sure.
First, you need to understand the project itself.
The nature of the beast.
Are you building something brand new
From scratch.
or working on a complex system?
With intricate dependencies.
Or maybe it's a smaller project.
Feature update, bug fix, something like that.
The scope and complexity.
They're going to play a huge role in determining the SDLC.
Okay, project scope, that's a big one.
It is.
What else?
Risk tolerance.
Risk tolerance.
That's it.
Another crucial factor.
So if the project is mission critical,
High potential consequences.
you'd probably lean towards a more risk-averse model.
Something like Spiral or Waterfall.
Think about software for medical devices,
Air traffic control.
financial trading platforms.
You can't afford any surprises in those environments.
Definitely not. No room for error.
Not at all.
But what about companies
Yeah.
that operate in fast-paced industries,
Where speed is key.
where adaptability is essential for survival?
That's where Agile and RAD really shine.
If you're a startup trying to disrupt the market,
You gotta move quickly.
experiment, iterate,
Based on real-world feedback,
Agile and RAD,
they give you that flexibility, that responsiveness.
to keep up with the market.
So it's like a sliding scale.
High risk, more control.
Fast-paced market, more agility.
Makes sense.
But what about the team?
The team's important.
Their skills, their experience.
They definitely factor into the equation.
If your team is full of Agile experts,
Yeah,
throwing them into a waterfall environment,
might not be the best idea.
it's like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole.
You got to match the model to the team.
And then there's company culture.
Company culture.
How does that play into the SDLC selection?
It's often overlooked, but it's huge.
So some organizations thrive on hierarchy.
Processes, documentation,
Others are more fluid.
collaboration, experimentation, iteration.
The SDLC needs to align with that culture.
You can't force a square peg into a round hole.
It's like choosing a dance partner.
Gotta find someone who moves to the same rhythm.
That's a great analogy.
And here's the thing, you don't always have to choose just one.
You don't.
Nope. Many companies use a hybrid approach.
Like a mix and match.
Exactly, combining elements of different SDLCs.
So you could blend Waterfall with Agile.
Or incorporate Spiral into an incremental approach.
Well, it's like having a toolbox full of tools.
Use the right tool for the job.
Or combine them to create a custom solution.
That's the beauty of it.
And the choice of SDLC.
It's not set in stone.
You can adjust as you go.
As the project evolves, as the company grows,
It's all about continuous improvement.
learning from experience, finding what works best.
This has been an incredible journey.
It has.
We've gone from demystifying these acronyms.
to real-world applications
We've even peeked behind the curtain.
of how companies make these decisions
It's like we've unlocked a secret level.
in the game of software development.
And that game is constantly evolving.
New models will emerge, existing ones will adapt.
It's all going to shape the future of software.
It's an exciting time to be in this field.
So the next time you open your favorite app
Or play a video game.
or interact with a website,
Take a moment to appreciate the process behind it. It's a hidden world, but it has a huge impact on our lives.
maybe you'll even find yourself trying to guess.
Which SDLC they used.
It's like a fun little puzzle.
It is.
Well, we've reached the end of our deep dive.
We've covered a lot of ground.
Thanks for joining us
We hope you learned something new.
and gained a new appreciation for the world of software development.
It's a fascinating world out there.
Until next time,
Keep exploring, keep learning.
and keep building amazing software.